Healthcare technology is often imagined as something cold, clinical. A screen, a sensor, a stream of data. Something that removes the human element of care and compassion. A foreign object that silently sits there, judging us if we don't make our step goal for the day. But at its best, healthcare technology isn't about replacing the human experience. It's about supporting it. It's not judgmental, it's inspiring. It's helping us heal, move and live our lives more fully. And at Ohio State, researchers are rethinking what healthcare technology can look like. From what we wear, to how we recover, to how creativity itself can become part of medicine. I'm Matt Stessner, and you're listening to Now at Ohio State. We talk with researchers, innovators, and bold thinkers who look at our world, see what the real challenges are, and create the solutions that people need now. Our first guest is working at the cutting edge of wearable and implantable health technology, researching and building devices that could one day move healthcare out of the clinic and into everyday life. Asamina Kyorti is an associate professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, where she leads the Wearable and Implantable Technologies group. Her interdisciplinary research lies at the intersection of electromagnetics, sensors, and medicine. Additionally, her work focuses on bioelectromagnetics, wearable and implantable antennas, sensors for body area applications, and flexible e-textiles. In her conversation with our Ross Bischoff, Asamina discusses wearable technology, how it really works, why today's devices aren't yet clinical grade, and how fabric-based sensors and smart garments could help doctors monitor patients more accurately, from athletic rehabilitation to stroke detection and beyond.
Hi, Asamina. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here.
I think most people I know, they either have a Fitbit or a smartwatch or you name it, right? But I'm not sure everyone knows how it works. I mean, this is what you do. You're taking this technology to a new level. Could you, first of all, just talk about what wearable technology is and maybe define it for us?
Yes. So the idea of wearable technology, like the word says by itself, is something we wear. So it's part of your natural clothing. It's part of a gadget that you carry with you. So the end goal is monitoring vitals. When I say vitals, it can be anything from like breathing rate, from heart rate, number of steps, anything related to our health. It's in close proximity to the body, so that's how we say we wear it. You can wear it on your wrist, and that's because that's a comfortable setup that people are familiar with, who have been wearing watches for years. And we're lucky for that in the sense that people are familiar with it, no matter age or demographic. But in my group, we want to think down the road, like 10 years from now, 20, 50 years from now, how's that wearable technology going to look like? And we have identified two major, obstacles as of now. One is the looks of it, really. You're limited. There's so much a watch can monitor. What if it's something more seamless that you can embed in your clothing? So you take advantage of a larger surface area. Maybe embedded in fabric, so it's, again, you don't feel like you're wearing it. It's not heavy, it doesn't obstruct you in any way. So one aspect is the comfort, looks, unobtrusiveness of the sensor. The other aspect, which is the most challenging one, is the reliability of the data that you collect. Right now we have watches, we have Fitbits, but there is a warning saying that this is not clinical grade devices. So yeah, there's data that comes out, but no clinician, no medical doctor would trust that data. So it's good to use as a hobby, maybe to monitor your, like sports events, your health as an individual, but it's not something that a patient can rely on. So that's what we want to build on, make these devices clinical grade, ideally, meaning that the data being collected could predict medical conditions, could monitor, could rehabilitate patients, and doctors could eventually trust this data.
So that's what's really interesting is this clinical aspect of wearables. That's not around, correct?
That's correct. No clinician will trust these devices as of now. I interact a lot with them. It's a huge part of what we do talking with clinicians, doctors, nurses, understand what they need. Every single time I talk to them, they'll come back to me with like full of ideas on what a wearable could do for them ideally if they had it. And there's no case where they told me that, yeah, there's this wearable out there that I can use right now. So we want to bridge that gap. So I'm going to give you examples in the areas that we're exploring. One of them is kinematics and monitoring the motion of the human body. We're working with sports medicine. They do surgeries, let's say on the knee, ACL reconstruction, and they want to rehabilitate those patients who are most often athletes, young athletes who want to go back to play. They want to go back to their original condition and real quick, and they do not have quantitative data after surgery, especially not in their patient's real life, real world, to be able to objectively get them back to play. So that's one area we're working on. Switching gears, we're working with like heart monitoring sensors to decide if a patient needs a pacemaker. They need an invasive procedure. And when I say invasive, it means that there is a catheter, like a long cable, going from a vein on the leg all the way to the heart to collect signals in the heart and decide whether you need a pacemaker or not. And you might as well go through that procedure and decide that, oh, it turns out you do not need a pacemaker. So what if that technology was wearable? So no one has to go through that invasive process. And maybe even if you don't know that you might be in need of a pacemaker, that wearable could help you. One last example comes to mind is stroke. There are two types of stroke. One is when like the vein bursts and you have blood in the brain. And the other is kind of the opposite, where the vein gets clogged and there's no blood circulation. So the earlier they know the type of stroke, the earlier they can act and not just like help outcomes, but also save lives. Again, there's no such technology now. The patient has to go to the hospital, do a CAT scan, and then come up with a decision. They're looking for wearables where on the spot, like you call the ambulance, you get the patient, hook them up with a wearable, figure out the type of stroke, and proceed accordingly.
With regard to, say, a stroke, what would that look like?
Looking at the end goal, the vision is for a wearable cap, really like a hat, smart hat that you just place on the patient. This wirelessly even just sends data on a phone and provides an image that the clinician can assess. At this point, we're working with a benchtop setup. So we're not going to have a patient who have what we call a phantom model. So it's like a tissue mimicking material. We do have something that resembles a smart hat, but I would have like cables as of now connecting to a bulky equipment. But that's the process of proving the concept that something works, miniaturizing it, testing it on patients, and hopefully one day make it a clinical grade product.
But it's really interesting to see you work because I've seen video of you, and I think I've even seen it. You have a sewing machine and you're actually sewing into an Ohio State logo this wearable technology, right?
It's like a regular embroidery machine that people can have at home. And we have changed the functionality, like the tensions and the way it works. And instead of using regular thread, we have conductive thread. So all of these sensors that I keep talking about, all these examples, at the end of the day, it comes down to having some kind of metal, and you need to have current circulate on that metal. When that happens, that's how we get the wireless energy out. Metal is traditionally copper, that we all know. It's a rigid, like brown-colored material. Now we're using conductive thread to mimic copper. So you can have the machine just embroider right and left and as dense as you want surfaces that feel like fabric but operate like copper eventually. The advantage is that clothes have a large surface area. So if I embed the sensor there, leveraging a clothing or a piece of garment that I'm already using, I have the advantage of a large surface area so I can collect more signals. So what's missing is how can I make that sensor like seamless and feel like fabric? So that's where conductive threads come into play.
When you say signals, what do you mean?
There's signals that we naturally transmit as humans. For example, our heart, there's electric activity. There is electric field coming out. There's magnetic field coming out. So one type of signal is a signal that we're transmit as humans and we need to pick it up. The other aspect of signal would be if I build a sensor that's kind of active, meaning the sensor transmits and receives. An example would be monitor the motion of the body or have purposely sense energy and one that purposely receives. So the signal in that case is what I sent versus what I received.
And so, and this data can help us deal with everything from helping an athlete rehab to a stroke patient?
As simple as just in our everyday life, monitoring our vitals for the sake of monitoring our health and improving our well-being. It can be something along the lines of helping an athlete improve their training or save lives when we're talking about stroke.
Ohio State kind of specializes in interdisciplinary research, and I think every time I talk to you, you're like the gold standard for this, right? I mean, you work with NASA, but here at Ohio State, you work with like 5 different colleges, you work with fashion experts. Why is interdisciplinary research so critical to what you do?
Really, that's the reason why I am at Ohio State. I love being here. Yeah, we do have strong College of Engineering, but we have the College of Nursing, the College of Medicine, Arts and Sciences, and I'm working with all these people. So the end goal, again, is a clinical device that I'm hoping a patient would be able to wear or have in their body and collect clinical data. So how do we get there? I'm an engineer. I have no idea what the patient needs. So the very first step is to talk to clinicians, understand what they need. So they're a critical part before even our step 1. And then, of course, along the design process, is this something that your patient would wear? What kind of data do you need? Then work with them to validate, get patients from their clinic. And then you start building the sensor, you need something that looks pretty. Again, as an engineer, I have no idea. To me, it either works or it doesn't. It's really black and white. But then I started working with designers and understand there's much more to it. It has to look nice. And me as a consumer, I wouldn't buy it unless it's comfortable and small and feels nice. So yeah, it's really interdisciplinary research. It's not just the basic science of it. We're looking into products eventually that people would use. So all these disciplines are equally important, I would say.
Awesome, Mina. This has been enlightening as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All of this technology can collect huge amounts of data, but healing is about more than numbers. Recovery, especially from brain injury or neurological trauma, is not just physical. It's emotional, it's social. And sometimes it's deeply creative. That's where Lise Worthen-Chaudhary comes in. Lise is an assistant professor in the College of Medicine in the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. She develops therapies that unite artistic engagement with neuroscience to help people rehabilitate from neural impairments. Here she talks with Ross about how creative engagement changes brain activity, why enjoyment matters in rehabilitation, and how artistic practices can become powerful tools for healing.
Lise, thank you so much for being here today.
Why, thank you for having me.
I've always found what you do fascinating. Can you kind of tell our listeners, just give us an overview of what your research is?
I'm trying to improve rehabilitation from neural injury. So that could be brain injury, that could be neuropathy from diabetes or from chemotherapy. And I'm trying to make that rehabilitation just more interesting, honestly. Right now, the way that we try to improve function is great, but it's a lot of work. Physical therapy is work, occupational therapy is work. And, people aren't afraid of work, but couldn't it be a little bit more interesting or enjoyable? So that's what I do. So I bring in the arts, whether that's dance or music or even gaming, to just try to make that activity-based therapy or activity-based medicine a bit more engaging.
Brain injuries are a massive problem, right? I mean, the stat I saw said something like half the world's population can expect a brain injury. That essentially means everyone's either going to be directly impacted or have someone they love impacted. I've had a concussion. My son has. I believe you have.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes. I've had 2.
Yeah. You've had 2?
Yeah. I mean, car accident, boom, you're concussed. Sports accident, boom, you're concussed, right? And we know that there are sometimes lasting issues from those concussions. I mean, you hit your brain. It makes sense that would take a bit for your system to shake off. And like you just said it perfectly. That means that half the world is dealing with their brain being injured, and then half the world is taking care of the people whose brains are injured.
It's frightening, and as we were discussing earlier, it might not just be a concussion. What are all the ways like a brain injury could happen?
Yeah, it's crazy. So one surprisingly common way is actually chemotherapy. Certain types of chemotherapy are neurotoxic. And that means that it's affecting the brain too. So we have data, as all kinds of papers coming out, showing that you go in for chemotherapy, it's great. You get better from cancer. But in the process, your brain is accumulating the neurotoxicity. And so you end up with like chemofog. You end up with chemotherapy-induced neuropathy, even some cardiac issues.
So you're actually a trained dancer and a research specialist in biomechanics and physical rehabilitation. Talk about how important it is to get people to enjoy rehab. Like you were saying this before, but I mean, getting into that flow state, how important is that into the rehabilitation process?
Yeah. I mean, there's like the aspect of just motivation. Will you do it or will you not do it? And so it's important for that. My research is looking at what are some of the additional value adds other than just do it. And some of the data that we have is looking at, does your brain activity change? And, both in the moment that like you're doing the activity and then over time. And the preliminary evidence looks like there's some indication that, your brain activity does change and for the better when you're just making something rather than following orders.
What is happening in our brain when we're creating art, when we're dancing, when we're playing video games? What's going on in there?
Yeah. Some of the data shows that when you engage something artistically or creatively, that you just activate additional parts of your brain. So if you're dancing, you still activate the motor parts of your brain like you would in physical therapy, but you do it more holistically. And you do it in a way that you have ownership over rather than somebody telling you what to do. And especially with dance, we can do that in partnership. So you can bring in a spouse, a friend, and then you can do the movements that will make you better, right? The movements that are the medicine. But, you engage these other parts of your brain. Social engagement, you get to laugh with your partner. And that engagement of other parts of the brain ends up reinforcing the improvements that you're creating.
Talk about the past rehab services you've created.
I get to work with a lot of clinicians, doctors, nurse practitioners, physical therapists, occupational therapists, recreational therapists. And I get to watch from the sides, what is working, what isn't working. And for instance, one of the things that I pitched was social gaming. So teens with concussion, the problem that the clinicians were having was that they wanted to tell the teens things like, oh, just listen to your body. Oh, just, take it easy. Teens don't have any frame of reference for how to do that. I mean, adults barely have a frame of reference for how to do that. There was an existing social game out there. It was called Super Better. And I just contacted the developer of it and said, hey, what do you think? Would you be on board for trying to get funding to test this in teens? It's just a really simple phone app that cues you once a day to say, hey, how you doing? Why don't you check in? And in this app, we'll let you connect with people who care, people who know about concussion. And there are all kinds of gamified mechanisms in the app that are super cool. But the basic thing that the game was trying to do is just get people to not feel alone and to use their phones to do it. So instead of saying, oh, phones are horrible, we shouldn't use phones, just use it. I mean, that's what teens are on. Might as well use it. So we tried it, and usual care versus usual care with just this once a day touch and just that little bit of help from the social game improved people's symptoms.
You also had one in which you actually created a tango rehabilitation, correct?
Someone else had started adapting tango for people with Parkinson's disease and older adults, and it was working. An undergraduate that I was working with and I, in talking about it, asked the question, could this work for people who were younger and their brain and their neural system, the damage is coming from chemotherapy? And we tested it. It really is Argentine tango. We call it adapt tango because it is adapted, right? It's not like rows in the teeth and, you're doing flips or, you're doing dips. It's really more like the kind of tango that you would do in Argentina in a milonga. We adapted it again for cancer and specifically for people with breast cancer and with neuropathy, chemotherapy-induced neuropathy in their feet. What we're finding is that once you get chemotherapy-induced deficits, at least neuropathy, that those deficits stick with you for even a decade, is what we're finding. So we reached out to people in the community who were done with their cancer treatment. And we said, hey, you reported that you had this. Does this still bother you? Because I know we didn't have anything for you before, but we might have something for you now. And people who were interested came back in, and sure enough, we could improve. We could improve their sensation. We could improve their neuromotor skill with tango, with Argentine tango.
What did you hear from people who took part in this study? What were they telling you afterwards?
There was one participant who came in and was so excited because she had always had issues feeling her feet on the pedals of the car when she was driving. Obviously, that's intimidating.
That's pretty important.
You're on the highway, you're trying to change lanes, and you can't feel, you've got numbness in your feet, so you can't really feel the brake and the accelerator. So she was just dealing with it, doing her best, getting by. And over the course of just dancing tango with us, she started to be able to feel the bottom of her foot.
Wow.
And she had this great story where she got off the highway and she called her sister and was like, you won't believe it. I just felt my foot for the first time since I underwent chemotherapy. And it's just exciting. Many people who have come in for the study who actually are caretakers for like grandkids, and being able to have not be so worried about falling so that they can hug their grandkids, or their grandkids can be a little bit, rough and, kid-like around them without them worrying about it because they're just a bit more stable. That's huge quality of life improvement.
In your studies, have you worked with people who maybe are resistant to the artistic movement or dancing? They say, I'm not a dancer. I don't know how to do this. Like, have you run into that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people that we talk to say, nah, I have 2 left feet. Inevitably, that has proven not true. So, I mean, this is really, really simple stuff. We're not doing complicated steps here. We're putting on music. We're finding the beat of the music. And then we're moving really simply to the beat of the music. And then once we've got that, then we're partnering. We're actually holding on to each other. And we're just moving each other to the beat of the music through the space. Honestly, it's really just fun. If it's not fun, we're not doing it right. And showing them how they absolutely can walk to the music. They were already doing it in their kitchen. Why not just do it here with me where I can help make sure it's going to improve your function?
Do you see this as maybe a future to rehabilitation, or maybe the future? I mean, is this something like we could have clinicians who become trained dancers and are helping people in this way, or video games that are helping people?
Absolutely. Yeah. There is always going to be a place for that really super skilled rehab. I can't provide that. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, recreational therapists, speech therapists, there are people who are clinically licensed. What they deliver is super specialized and super important. But they're always giving people homework to go home with. And that homework is hard and can be really alienating. Say your homework is follow these directions on this paper. But, you have a brain injury, so it's hard to even read the paper. The very deficits that you're there to try to improve are stopping you from being able to do the homework well. I foresee a time when dancers could become certified or go through a degree program to provide dance actually as neurologic medicine.
Lise, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about this. This is an amazing work. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Healthcare technology doesn't have to feel distant or impersonal. It's not some cold, calculating big brother mining our data from watches and rings around the globe. Sometimes it looks like a sensor woven into fabric, quietly collecting the information that helps a doctor make better decisions. And sometimes it looks like music, movement, and laughter, helping someone reconnect with their body and their life after injury. Technology, at its core, works best when it's designed around people. When engineers, clinicians, artists, and patients come together, innovation doesn't just advance healthcare technology, it humanizes it, turning it into something that connects us better to our own selves, keeping us healthy and helping us heal. Now at Ohio State is produced by The Ohio State University. For more information, visit us at go.osu.edu/now. I'm your host, Matt Stessner. Thanks for listening.